Well, hello. Hello, team. Here I am recording a video for you. I'm so sorry to anybody who tried to join me live today for this training, but something happened with Facebook today. I was not able to stream from anywhere, not able to stream directly from Zoom here like I normally do, and I only did it 2 days ago into another group that I have. And I also wasn't able to go directly live from my phone, which was annoying. And I tried to go live into the group straight from my laptop, i.e. not through Zoom, and it still wasn't working. But not to worry, where there's a will, there's a way, right? So, and I have a will, I have a very strong will to deliver you the content that you want, that you need, that is going to help you get you towards your health and your weight loss goals. So do not fear. I am here. I just decided to record this as a separate video anyway, upload it to YouTube so it can still go to YouTube. Hi YouTube if you're watching on YouTube. And I will give you the link in the group. So you're going to get this training anyway. We just couldn't be here live. And so I wasn't able to answer any live questions for you. But no worries. You can always drop them in the comments when I put them into the group. That's all good. Right. So today's live, I'm so used to saying that word. Today's video is for you if you are whole food plant-based and you're not seeing weight loss. So you might have transitioned just recently, or you might have been, excuse me, doing it for a little while. And you might not be seeing any more progress, like you might have stalled at some point, you might be plateauing a little bit, or you might not have seen any weight loss at all, and you're struggling to know what's going on. So it's a bit of a troubleshooter today for you. But before we start, I just want to say that having excess fat stores on your body is just that. It's just excess energy that is on your body that has been put aside for you to use at a later date. Basically, we've put a little bit much, we've put more into the body than the body needs immediately, so it's storing it there for a later date. You are not fat. You are not overweight. Fat or overweight or whatever word it is that you use is not your identity. I want to make that very, very clear. Being overweight is not a reflection of you as a person. It's not a reflection of your self-worth. It's not your identity. I want to get that across to you. It's not your identity. If you identify as fat or overweight or whatever word you are using, then letting go of that attachment to that identity is going to be very key to your long-term success. And once you can let go of that identity, well, guess what? You'll also be able to easily let go of the excess energy that is on your body, right? If you identify as fat or overweight, what happens is that you subconsciously, unconsciously keep doing things that will result in you continually identifying as that person. All right? So if we can drop that identity, stop describing yourself as I'm fat, I'm overweight, whatever term it is that you're using. Once you stop identifying as that, then you're able to start releasing the physical layer that helps you keep that identity. All right? Okay. However, right, I do know how uncomfortable it is to carry excess energy on your body because I have been there. I know what it's like, and I 100% support your desire for optimum health and energy by releasing it. But we want to do that in healthy ways, all right? So that's what I am here to help you with, obviously. So for those of you who might be new to me, watching the first time, my name is Karen. I am the Plant Power Coach. I am certified in whole food plant-based nutrition. I'm also certified as a health coach and a life coach. So I've got a lot of tools under my belt here to help you achieve your goals. I am the creator of Plant Power Transformation, which is my weight loss coaching program, where you work with me to refine not only your food and your health habits, but we also work on your mindset, your emotional management, and your identity to ensure your long-term success. We want to release any of that diet mentality that we've got going on in there, and we want to make sure that you are going to achieve the goals for the long term. All right. Okay, so today, like I said, we're looking at some of the reasons that you might not be losing weight. And if you can make some small adjustments to what it is that you're doing, don't have to be big sweeping changes, right? Just some of these little tweaks that you can start looking at, then that can help you really continue to move in the right direction. Right? We don't need to be perfect. We just need to continually make improvements. All right. But before we dive into that, first of all, I want to address 4 reasons that I often hear people using as to why they think they're not losing. Now, these are not reasons that you're not losing, all right? So we don't want to raise these. We don't want to bring these up at all. The first is too many carbs. Like I'm eating too many carbs, or whole food plant-based is too carb heavy, so I can't lose weight. Sorry, look, this is for you guys who've come from a keto or a low carb background. No way. If you haven't been eating carbs, and if you've been indoctrinated in that mantra that carbs are fattening, then this is probably how you've been thinking as you transition to whole food plant-based. But basically, if this is you, if you've come from a low carb background, or even if you've been doing low carb in any other sort of variety, or staying away from carbs because you believe that carbs are going to make you fat, what's happening is that your energy tank and your hydration tank, think of the fuel tank and the water tank in your car, they're empty, right? And when you switch to whole food plant-based, what's happening is you are refilling the tanks. You're putting water back in the car. You're putting oil back in the car. You're putting fuel back in your car. You're refilling your muscle and your liver cells with energy, with the glycogen that they store. And that's what you actually need for your body to perform optimally. That's where you get your energy from. That's what your brain uses to run, okay? Now, for every gram of glycogen, and that glycogen is what's actually stored into the muscles, okay? So it's glucose in the blood, it's the carbohydrate that's broken down to the glucose in digestion to the basic form that then gets stored in muscle, in liver cells, they call it glycogen. So for every 1 gram of glycogen that you store in your muscle and liver cells, it's going to bind to around 3 grams of water. So as you fill up that car, your body is likely going to weigh a little more because your tanks are now full. You've got a full tank of gas, you've got full water, and you carry 3 times as much water as you do fuel. Think of it that way. So you might have an extra, I don't know, a couple of pounds or something of fuel in the tank when you eat this way. You might also just have extra food in transit when you eat this way. So oftentimes people are, in other ways of eating, are having to eat very small meals because they're very calorically dense. What happens with whole food plant-based, you can eat more volume because it's so calorically light. So you could be eating more volume of food, which then is going to weigh more in your body as well. All right. Now, by keeping your plant-based diet low fat, what happens now is you're giving your body a chance to burn your excess fat stores, which that is the energy that we use primarily when we're at sleep or at rest. And if you're not putting a whole heap more in, then you're not storing a whole heap more. So your body is now releasing body fat as you change to whole food plant-based, but you might not see that on the scale because you might have some extra food in transit just in your body in general. That might be another couple of pounds or so, might be 1 or 2 pounds. And you also have got full tanks of gas, right? You got full tanks of glycogen and water. So that scale may not look like it's shifting. In fact, if you've come from a low carb background, it actually might look like it's going up a little bit initially, but you might still be dropping body fat because now your body's able to burn what you have on it because you're not pouring more in, okay? Now, it takes patience and it takes trust that this process will work. This is a long-term game. Weight loss is not a day-to-day jump on the scale and see, oh, did we do good today? Did we do good today? Fat loss doesn't happen like that. You've got to be prepared to see it through for the long term. The scale, when you eat whole food plant-based versus low carb, it's not going to move as fast because you are actually losing body fat. Now, the reason why you lose fast on keto is because you are burning up all that fuel and you're not replacing it. So like driving your car, you go through gas, but what if you never stop in to refill? Right? That's what you're doing on keto. You're burning through all of that glycogen in your muscle and liver cells, and you're not replenishing it. And then also with all that glycogen that's burned off, because that's our primary fuel source, as you burn all that glycogen off, obviously you're releasing a lot of water as well. So the majority of the weight that you lose on that scale is water. But you're empty on energy and you're not hydrated. It's not good for you. You're actually releasing very little body fat. The scale might move quickly, but it's not a lot of body fat. Right? You're also more likely to break down your muscle stores. That's what happens when we're in ketosis. The body still needs glucose for energy, so it breaks down muscle stores. The brain 100% runs on glucose. So what you're doing by breaking your muscle stores down is actually affecting your metabolism. So what I don't want to have you do is say that it's carbs. I'm not losing weight because of the carbs, or I've put on weight because it's the carbs. Well, you're not necessarily putting on body fat if they're whole carbs, all right? So just be patient. This is a long-term game. You need to look at this from a long-term perspective and also start to look at the health of your body. Start to consider how you feel, more energized, healthier. Let's do this for health, not just for weight loss, all right? So that was reason number one. That is not the problem. Reason number two, that is not the problem. I hear people say, I think my metabolism is broken. I've got a really slow metabolism. Your metabolism can't break. It's like saying, what else? Well, what else can we say has broken? My lungs have broken. No, or my heart has broken. When your heart breaks, you die. Okay, and I don't mean heartache. I mean like when it stops beating, you die. So your metabolism's a bit the same. It's always running in the background. Now it may be impacted. If you are starving yourself, the body will actually slow it down so that you don't waste away, so that you will stay alive, right? But what they see with people who, might have had eating disorders or things like that, when they start eating again, that metabolism speeds up again. So your metabolism can't break. The human body is incredibly adaptive, but it can bounce back. Even if you have been doing this crazy dieting pattern, your metabolism is not broken. So when you decide that this is the reason, you're more likely to feel defeated and quit on yourself. So let's not even consider that, right? That's going to result in more lack of progress, because if you believe that there's something out of your control, you're likely to go and do a bunch of bullshit eating, which is likely the thing that's actually keeping you stuck. Okay, reason number three, this is not the reason why you are not losing weight, is menopause. I hear this so many times, okay? It is not just, it's not menopause in and of itself. So what happened, like I've helped many people, many women who are going through menopause, perimenopause, or are what would you call it, on the other side of menopause. I've helped many people in this situation, many women in this situation lose weight. And what happens is during this time, your ovaries are no longer making estrogen. And what happens, particularly for women who are not whole food plant based, where estrogen levels tend to be very, very high. Okay, why that is, it's because of the diet, because of the dairy, because of the animal products. You're putting more and more estrogen into your body. Plus, it's if you've been eating a low carbohydrate or low fiber diet, then your body doesn't have the tools, i.e. the fiber, to balance out that estrogen. So if you haven't been low whole food plant-based, what happens is your estrogen levels are very, very high. And then during menopause, suddenly the main way of creating estrogen in your body, your ovaries is no longer producing, so the estrogen levels plummet. So it's that massive drop in estrogen that signals to the body to start storing body fat around the middle. Okay, so it's not menopause per se, it's that massive drop from very high estrogen levels to very low estrogen levels that causes the body to signal storing more body fat around the middle, because the body is always trying to keep equilibrium with our hormones, so it needs a way for the body to be able to produce estrogen, and body fat cells produce estrogen. All right, so if you've got a massive drop happening, the body goes, well, hey, hang on, store some more fat so we can make some more estrogen. But if you're on a whole food plant-based diet, your estrogen levels to start with are going to be lower. Now, this is safe. It's much safer for a woman to have lower estrogen levels, because high estrogen leads to things like cancers, reproductive issues. I've probably done another post or video on this somewhere. Maybe I should if I haven't. Okay, but if you want to learn a little bit more about that, I suggest you read Dr. Neil Barnard's Your Body in Balance. He's got some very good information on this. So on a whole food plant-based diet, your estrogen levels will naturally be lower, because you're getting plant phytoestrogens that help block estrogen. You're not putting in extra estrogen from animal products, and you are eating a high fiber diet that helps clean up any excess. Okay, so when you go through menopause, what happens is the phytoestrogens in plants, you get a much lower drop, okay, in estrogen. So if your body, if this is zero, ovaries no more creating estrogen, normal women are up here and there's a massive drop. Whole food plant-based women might be here and there's just a little drop. So it's not signaling to the body's not receiving any signals that there's a massive drop coming, and to store body fat. Also, plant compounds, phytoestrogens, can also replace the effect of estrogen in the body, so that you're not getting such a dramatic drop. All right. So no, it's not menopause per se. You can still lose weight during menopause. If you decide that this is your reason and you have no control over it, you're more likely to do bullshit eating again. And it's the bullshit eating that holds you back from losing the weight. It's not the menopause. All right. Fourth reason why that is not the reason that you're not losing weight is genetics. Okay, so if your family is heavy, if your family has had weight struggles in the past, guess what is also common in families? Eating behaviors, lifestyle, right? We grow up eating the same foods. We grow up looking at what our parents do, how they live their lives, their relationship to food. If you grew up in a family that used to use food to celebrate every single occasion, you likely then grew up overeating. If your family has a tradition of, bringing out the cake and the biscuits and the coffee and the tea every time someone comes over to visit, certainly some of my relatives are like this, then you'll likely grow up with overeating habits as well, if it just became a habit just to have coffee and tea and biscuits every time somebody came to visit. If your parents offered you sweets or other food to soothe your emotions when you were a child, then you've likely grown up with some overeating, emotional eating behaviors as well. If your family ate out a lot or a lot of takeaway or fast foods, for example, it's the food, it's not the genetics. All right, so your relationship to food, that was developed in your family life as well. That is more responsible for your weight and your health than your genetics. All right, genetics load the gun, but lifestyle actually pulls the trigger. All right, so there are 4 reasons that you can't use, okay? And one of them is actually a diet myth, all right, that carbs are fattening. And the other 3 are factors that are outside of your control. And if you choose to believe that it's something outside of your control, what happens is you're more likely to give up on yourself. You're more likely to quit because you think there's nothing that you can do. You're kind of giving away your power, right? And when you give away your power, when you quit and give away your power, guess what? You don't focus on it anymore. You eat anything, and that's what holds you back. It's your belief that something is out of your control that leads to overeating in some way, that leads to you not being able to lose weight. So careful with what you believe. All right, so let's move on to the number 1 reason that you're not losing weight, and the only reason you're not losing weight. You're not in a calorie deficit. If you're not in a calorie deficit, you'll not lose, right? If you eat more energy than your body burns, you will gain weight. If you eat the same amount of calories that you burn, then you'll maintain your weight. So if you think, oh no, we'll go here. If this is the amount of energy that you burn in a day, and you eat this much, you're going to put on some weight. If you eat the same, you're eating for maintenance. If you eat less, you're going to start losing. Simple as that, all right? But you don't need to count calories either, all right? Please, 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 please don't think that you need to go and do that. Around here, we only do long-term sustainable things. We don't want to do bullshit. We don't want to do tactics. We're not going to go to extremes. If you can't see yourself doing it at age 90, and if you're whole food plant-based, I expect you to be aiming for 100. If you can't see yourself doing it at age 90, then we're not going to do it at all. All right? None of this calorie counting and macro counting, it's just not necessary. All right, counting calories is actually ridiculous because, how much is this much in terms of energy that you burn? You don't know. You have absolutely no way of knowing exactly how many calories that you are burning or how much energy you are burning to start with. And that number actually varies day to day. It depends on a whole heap of things. Depends on your level of activity, depends on how much you're using your smart human brain, your prefrontal cortex. This is the biggest energy burner in your body. It depends on the season or the climate that you live in, whether your body is trying to heat up or cool down. It depends on whether you sit on your butt all day or whether you're up and moving around all day. Depends how much incidental movement you get into your day. Do you have a stand-up desk? That's burning a little bit more energy than sitting down all day. Do you get up and wander around the office, or are you on your feet literally working all day? If you're in a retail store or you're doing nursing or something like that, where you're on your feet all day, you'll be burning more energy, but you don't necessarily, it's going to vary day to day. And yes, there are, fancy schmancy calculators online that can help you estimate your BMR, your base metabolic rate, but they're not going to be 100% accurate either. And you're not going to sit there calculating your energy expenditure on a daily basis to know exactly what you need to be eating on a daily basis. Calorie counting apps are also allowed to be up to 20% out. So even if you do calculate exactly what you're burning, the calorie apps might be incorrect. So let's just forget all that stuff. It's not helpful. So why do we not need to do this? Well, if we consider animals in nature, we don't see overweight animals in nature. And why is that? I mean, they don't know what a calorie is. They don't sit there and work out their BMR and do all sorts of complex calculations. Oh, we're such smart human beings, aren't we? The only reason that we humans have resorted to complicated maths to feed ourselves is because we're eating the wrong foods, and we're eating for reasons that are not hunger. We're eating for pleasure. We're not just eating for fuel, right? So I want you to feel your body. This is how we eat without needing to count anything. Feel your body. Understand your hunger signals. This is your hunger hormone, ghrelin. You have it for a reason. That hunger hormone is a thing that makes, think of ghrelin as in grr, growl in the stomach. That is the signal to your brain that tells you when your stomach's empty and when it's time to eat. We need some more energy. Please feed us. That's the signal. Ghrelin will signal from your stomach to your brain saying, can we have some more, please? Right, listen to it. Then you want to listen to your satiation signals. And if you're wanting to lose weight, stop before you are full. You want to stop when you're satisfied rather than going overboard, right? You want to make sure that you are eating for hunger and only hunger, not for pleasure, not because it tastes good and they just want to have it, not because you're giving into an urge, oh, cake. No, we're not going to soothe your emotions either. We're not going to eat for boredom. We're not going to eat out of habit. It's the cakes and biscuits for morning tea every day. And also watch eating just because it says so on the clock, because of the time of day it is, right? There's all sorts of reasons that we eat that have absolutely nothing to do with hunger. So check in with your body. Am I hungry? Is it time to eat? If not, wait a little more. Have some water. Wait a little longer. Allow that hunger to really come in before you eat. You want to make sure that you are hungry. If you're not 100% sure, if you think it's hunger but you're not too sure, just eat. Don't get overly don't try and be perfect with this. Just eat. But what we're trying to do here is avoid eating for reasons that are not for hunger. Right? Habit eating, boredom eating, eating for pleasure, eating to soothe emotions, all those sorts of reasons are just not helpful. They form overeating patterns. Anytime you're eating that's not for hunger, you are overeating. Okay, and then on the flip side is obeying your satisfaction or your satiety signals. That is leptin. Leptin will kick in and tell your brain, hey, we've had enough over here. Stop. We're no longer hungry. We have enough fuel in the tank. We're done. Okay. You don't need to clean your plate because there's starving children in another part of the world. No, you don't need to clean your plate because it's a waste of food. You don't need to clean your plate because it's a waste of dollars not to. Right? What is a waste is you eating more food than your body needs and storing it as excess energy on your body that you're then going to struggle to get rid of. All right? So that is a waste. Stop at satisfied. Slow down. How do we find our satiation cues on time? We slow down. Most of us are eating way too fast. And what happens is poor little leptin sends a signal up. We're done down here. Eventually it gets to the brain and the brain goes, whoa, okay, stop. But then the stomach goes, oh, we've overdone it. Undo the pants. Right? Slow down. When you slow down your eating, you can find your satiation levels as they happen, rather than 10 minutes down the track and you go, oh, whoops, overdid it this time. All right. So watch the beliefs about, needing to, or the desires, the urges to clean up your plate, and slow down. Do whatever you can to slow down. Like eat with your non-dominant hand. slow down, find your satiation levels, stop there. And any thoughts that come up about continuing to eat, they're the things to work on. All right, so we want to quit this overeating, because that is what's going to help you get to your weight loss goals without needing to count calories or macros or any of that stuff. All right, so what I don't want you to do is to just try and eat less of what you're eating at the moment. Just don't just try and reduce your portion size, in other words, and stick with what you're eating now. So what you eat does matter, and I'll talk about that in a moment. So if you're eating high calorie dense foods, a lot of high calorie dense foods, just reducing your portion sizes is not necessarily going to leave you feeling satisfied. You might end up going hungry and wanting to eat more, and then over time, the more you do this, the more urgent hunger signals the body's going to throw up. It's going to throw up more urges for food, and that is what likely ends in a bit of a binge, right? And then you start to undo all the work that you've done because you go like, I can't stand this anymore, I need to eat. Right? So don't just try and stick with, the unhelpful or the high calorie dense foods that you might be eating and just reduce the size of them. Right, we want to make sure that we're eating a lot of low calorie dense foods, but we get to fill ourselves to satiation. Also, don't just try to rely on exercise. Don't try and rely on going out for a hard run or doing some really high intensity exercise in order to burn more energy. Exercise will only count for around 5 to 10% of overall energy burn. So it moves the needle slightly, but it's not a big amount. And what actually happens is, particularly if you're doing high intensity exercises, you get hungrier. The body needs more energy to replace the energy that you've just burnt. So it throws up more hunger signals. So you end up replacing a lot of that energy anyway. Right, so we actually burn the most calories at rest. That's the majority of the calories that we burn. And your prefrontal cortex, the smart version of you in here, that is the part of your body that actually burns the most. It is very, very energy inefficient. And if you didn't see my live last week on planning, I talk about the differences in our brain, the part that burns more energy and the part that doesn't. So you can go back and watch that one. That was the video on planning. All right, so exercise is important for health. I'm not saying it's not. I'm not saying don't move your body. But it's not the be all and end all. Don't just rely on exercise to try and achieve your weight loss goals or maintain your weight loss goals. I know how hard that is. I was doing it. And I know how hard I had to work to achieve my goals just by relying on exercise. Now, I was incredibly fit, yes, but I was also always injured. And every time I got injured, guess what? The weight came on, because the exercise I was doing was masking my diet underneath. I am able to maintain my weight so much easier now, just bringing the activity levels down. I still like to go for the odd, high intense burst. I have to admit I'm not quite as fit as I used to be, but that's okay. So I enjoy, more low intense exercise now, a lot of walking. I've incorporated some yoga now and some weight training. I've always done weight training, but not as much and nowhere near as intense as I used to. So, and now I rely more on my food to maintain my weight. I know how much more important that is. All right. So focus on eating and eating the right foods. All right. So what you eat does matter. It 100% matters. So what you want to do is eat larger portions of low calorie dense food, low fat, whole food, plant-based. Now, when I say larger portions, I'm meaning larger portions of low fat, whole food, plant-based, rather than smaller portions of high fat foods, of high calorie density foods, right? I'm not saying that you can eat eat as much as you want. I'll talk to that a little bit later. All right. So we want to make sure that we're getting in good sized portions of foods that are going to fill you up, but that are low in calorie density. This way you're going to feel satiated. You've got stretch receptors in your stomach that will go off and say, hey, we're full, or we're nearing full. That's when you stop at that satiation level, you'll be able to find that, right? And these low fat, whole food, plant-based foods are your green light foods. If you don't have a copy of my whole food plant-based guide or my weight loss guide, I outline what those green light foods are in both of those guides. If you don't have that, please put your hand up in the comments and say hashtag whole food plant-based guide or hashtag weight loss guide. Either. I'll reach out to you. Next, listen to your hunger and fullness cues, as I said. Make sure you're only eating for hunger and then stop at satisfied. When we say large portions of these foods, you still have to listen to your hunger and satiation cues. You cannot just keep overeating. You don't need to be perfect, right? But going on and off whole food plant-based as a general protocol is going to hold you back. Right? Either commit to being whole food plant-based and define what your little bit of wriggle room looks like to you, or don't do it all. Just commit to it. Either commit to it or don't. But stop this trying. When you sit in this trying space, you might make a little bit of progress, then you fall off, and I need to get back on it again. It's like, you know what? Just decide that you're going to be whole food plant-based, low fat whole food plant-based. The majority of your plate's going to be green light foods, right? And define what your little bit of wriggle room means so that you don't have to feel like you're constantly falling off. Because what happens when we constantly feel like we're falling off, we feel like we're failing, what we do is we go out into an all right binge. We say, oh, I can't do it, it's too hard. And we go and do some bullshit eating. And that's why you're on, off, on, off. Just define for you what that little bit of wriggle room looks like, okay? And then we start refining from there. So just make that decision. You don't have to be perfect, but you need to make progress and you need to make a decision to do this. That's also going to help you quit things like weekend binges. Like, there are people who like do really well during the week, and then the weekend comes, it's like, ugh, all out binge. Now, weekend time, I need a break. Because they're trying to be too strict with themselves, too strict and too restrictive with themselves during the week. All right? Just decide for yourself what your protocol looks like and stick to it. All right? And here are some troubleshooting tips if you're struggling and you truly are following the protocol. These are some of the things that you can start to investigate yourself to determine where you might be able to make some tweaks. Okay. So if you're gaining or you're not dropping, it means you are either eating too much energy or you're just eating enough for maintenance. So what we want to do is start documenting what you're eating and how much you're eating. And I also highly recommend that if you start marking if you were truly hungry when you ate, and also document if you stopped at satisfied or that time I went over. All right, do that if you're not seeing weight loss. That is really going to help you see how many times or what exactly it is that you're eating, and also how many times you have potentially overeaten. It will just highlight for you what it is that actually needs working on. But getting that visibility is the first step. What I also see with many people is too many red light foods starting to creep back in. Okay, so we might have our little bit of wriggle room being that, I might allow a bit of oil or white flours or sugars or something when I go out to eat. But what can happen is if you're not paying attention to your body and you're not paying attention to what you are eating and how often you're eating these foods, when you are allowing that little bit of wriggle room, this can lead to a bit of a slippery slope, right? And it can actually lead to you letting in more than you really desire, more and more energy that get stored on your body. So we want to start looking at the approximate red light foods that you still have in your protocol, and have they started to creep up? Remember, these are very calorically dense foods, and they're not and they're not health foods. Red light foods are the foods that are damaging to the body. If you have a little bit, then if you've got more green light or more orange light in your diet, that's going to protect you against the effects of these. But if you allow more of these red light foods into your diet, if that portion is creeping up, that could be what is holding you back. Also, too many orange light foods. Again, these orange light foods they're healthy foods, right? They're on protocol. They're part of the whole food plant-based protocol, but they're not necessarily great for weight loss. Now, I am not somebody who advocates getting rid of these completely, right? I say we can definitely include these in the diet, but we need to be aware. We need to eat them consciously, and we need to eat them with awareness. You need to stay in touch with your body. So things like, eating tofu or tempeh every single day, eating too many flour products, even if it's whole grain flour, even if it's, say, like a legume flour, even if it's a flour made from chickpeas or something else, it's still a flour, and that's considered a dry starch. And the dry starch doesn't have the water content, so the caloric density is higher. That's why they fall under orange light foods. All right, so too many, I'm going to call them flour products. That can include things like, making waffles or pancakes or something like that, right? The caloric density is still quite high. They might be compliant with whole food plant-based, but watch out for the amount of calories. You might be consuming too many plant fats. Many people I speak to are having avocado, nuts, seeds, nut butters every single day in a decent volume. Like a sprinkling here and there to put on the side is fine, but if you're not losing weight and you're not achieving your goals, then this is something to look at, right? And I don't mean you have to get rid of it completely. We just need to understand how often and how much you're having, what the volume looks like, and go, right, where can we look to reduce that slightly so you can continue on your goals, right? Dried foods as well. Dried foods, dried fruits, dried vegetables, these have had the water sucked out of them. So again, high in caloric density. Medjool dates. How many times do I see people talking about, medjool dates, yes, have that. They're a natural sweetener, yes, but they're very calorically dense. And because they're high sugar, very sweet, they attach to the pleasure centers of the brain. Yes, they've got fiber, but they still stimulate the pleasure centers of the brain, and they're very addictive, right? So be aware of this. Also, drying out foods. So look, I love my air fryer. Now, these foods don't sit under yellow light foods as such. They're green light foods, but when we air fry things, or when we getting my words muddled here, when we roast things, or doing air fried wedges, what you're doing is cutting that potato up nice and small, so it's got now lots of surface edges, and a lot of that water gets sucked out of the potato. And so it becomes more of a dry starch. It's still partly wet, but the caloric density goes up. I think it around about doubles. So I think potatoes are around 350 calories per pound, and I think when you do air fried wedges, it goes up to 600 and so. So just be aware that doing wedges is very calorically dense because you're drying them out. So if you do that a lot, and I love my wedges, don't you worry, but if you're doing it a lot and you're not losing weight, then that might be something to look at as well. So maybe look at doing boiled potatoes, or do a whole roast potato instead of cutting them into the wedges and having them air fried as wedges. So keep that water content really high in your vegetables. with most people, a lot of people, there's not enough green light foods in there. So not enough wet starches, like I say, the potatoes, the wet potatoes, the rice, the legumes, not enough non-starchy vegetables in general, right? A lot of people are just not eating that, might be just not eating enough vegetables. Um, who was it? Dr. Joel Kahn, I think, said, um, show me someone who's overweight and I'll show you somebody who's not eating enough vegetables. I think it was him. It was a quote, something like that. I remember hearing that the other day. So yeah, lots of non-starchy vegetables as well. They'll help fill you up. They're good, full of fiber, but they're also high in water content, which really lowers their calorie density. Then there's raw as well. Like if none of this, if none of what I've said previously applies to you, then maybe you're not, maybe increasing your raw can help as well. So raw, again, very low calorically dense because there's none of the water removed. And also the chewing of raw vegetables, it takes more time, it's more effort. So you actually naturally eat less. Like you eat less because you generally eat a bit slower, but also eating raw vegetables can be pretty tough and your brain goes, enough now. But as long as your brain doesn't say, enough now, let's go get something sweet. Right? Or it doesn't reject eating raw vegetables because it remembers, that was tough, right? Got to watch those thoughts. Another thing to be aware of is like keep your food really simple where you can. Include meals that are just really simple ingredients. You don't have to get complex and fancy and do all sorts of master chefery. Full meals are incredibly delicious, of course, but they can tempt you to overeat as well. Like delicious food can tempt you to overeat if you're not being aware of your satiation cues and your thoughts. Like if you are saying to yourself, oh my God, it just tastes so good, I have to keep going, you're likely to overeat. All right, so watch your thoughts as you're eating delicious food like this, and watch, you've got to stay aware of your satiation cues. But keeping your food really simple can disconnect that brain from, oh my God, that's so delicious, I need to keep eating. And it can actually go, you know what, I'm really in touch with where my body is. I can manage my satiation levels here. I'm bored of eating this, let's stop. Raw broccoli, let's not go there. Let's stop now, I'm done. All right, so keeping it simple is another way of being able to just refine what you're doing. And as I said previously, I highly, highly recommend that you pre-plan your food, pre-plan what you're going to eat in a day, and do that 24 hours in advance of actually eating the food, at least. And that you keep a food journal as well, where you look at what you planned to eat versus what you actually ate. Awareness is everything, right? Awareness of your patterns is absolutely everything. Now, we don't want to keep this journal so that you can beat yourself up when you haven't followed your plan. That's not the idea here. And this is actually one of the reasons why many people don't keep one. They don't trust themselves to follow it, and then they judge themselves for their lack of following it. Now, I did a training on planning last week, Planning for Success, and this is where I spoke more about it. So I'm not going to go into too much detail about that now. So if you didn't catch that, either go back for it. If you're in Facebook, look for it under guides. If you're on YouTube, then just it will be probably the last video I posted before this one. Or just type, if you're on Facebook, type in #planning, and I'll shoot you the link, or I'll tag you in that video so that you can watch it. I also offered up a blank 12-week food planner and journal template for you to use as well. So what we want to do is get super clear on exactly what it is that you're eating. It's hard to know what you can tweak if you don't know exactly what you are eating. Right? You don't know when you don't know what you're doing, you can't tweak, you can't improve. You've got to know, you've got to have that visibility in front of you. So we want to know, how much of what you're eating is actually green light food versus orange light food versus red light food. And we also want to know how often you stick to your plan, right? When you plan with your prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain that has your future goals in mind. But oftentimes when it comes to what we eat, we're responding to urges from the prehistoric brain, right? You might be planning to have something for dinner, but then your friends say, let's go out for dinner, and you go, yeah, that sounds better than the broccoli and rice I've gotten there. So in that case, you're responding to an urge. So how many times are you responding to urges? You might be out at a cafe having coffee and you see a vegan cake there and you go, oh, I just want that cake. It's a little bit of wriggle room for me. And you have that cake. Well, that is giving into an urge as well. So if it wasn't on your plan, this is where you're going off your plan. So you can have a plan that plans for your best, plans your goals in mind. But if you're oftentimes reacting to urges and start eating something else, then we need to understand that as well. And we need to understand if what you're swapping out, what you're eating instead, is that a good swap? Are you happy with that swap? Does that swap still take you towards your goals? Or is it the thing that's keeping you stuck? Right? But until you've got that visibility on paper, you're not going to know. All right? Also record on your planner. If you waited for your hunger signals to kick in before you ate, were you eating because you were hungry? Or were you eating because it was there? Were you eating because you were emotional? Were you eating because, it was time on the clock? Sometimes we've got to do that, particularly if we've got, during busy working hours and we get set times for lunch. All right. But in those times, it's going to be about understanding your own body's signals and how much you need to eat in order to take you through to your break time so that you'll be hungry at break time. Right? That's just a little bit more work that you might need to do. But we want to understand, are you eating for hunger? It's mainly about, are we eating for reasons other than hunger? Right, we want to understand how much that is happening. Also record if you overate. Record if it was like, oh my goodness, no, I overate that time. That's just going to give you the visibility and help you understand where your tweaks are, where the work is for you, okay? So it's not just about what we eat, that's incredibly important, but it's also about how much you eat and listening to your body, feeling your body's hunger and satiation cues. All right, so I hope you found that helpful. You don't have a license to eat just as much as you want. Please, I've got to say that again. A lot of people come into whole food plant-based thinking that they can just eat and eat and eat. Oh, we can eat as much as we want. Eat with abandon. No. Pay attention. Pay attention to what you eat. Pay attention to how much you eat. Pay attention to why you're eating. All right. So yes, I hope you found those tips and tricks helpful. I hope they help you understand how to now look at what it is that you're doing in a way that is going to not beat you up. We don't do that around here. We don't go, oh my God, I'm so stupid, I just didn't do it again. No, we don't do that. We go, I see a pattern. Okay, when I write this down, now I'm seeing the pattern. Now I can see it in front of me. Now I know where that opportunity is for me to tweak so I can continue moving forward and continue achieving my goals. That's all we want to do. It's just data. Just like the scale is data. All right, the scale is not there to tell you how good you are or how good you've been, or how bad you've been. It's data. Look at everything as data. All right, so I'm going to finish up there, folks. I hope you found that helpful. If you are struggling with your health or your weight loss goals, I'm very full up in terms of my coaching at the moment, but there may be some opportunities coming up in July. I will be traveling overseas to New Zealand to see my family at the end of next week. I'm very much looking forward to that. So I can still jump on Zoom calls with you while I'm away. I just will be doing a lot less of that. And right now my coaching is pretty full, so I don't really have the opportunity for anybody to join just yet, but I still want to help you move forward with your goals, and I'd still love to jump on some Zoom calls, and just, if you're really stuck, it doesn't matter if you're not ready for coaching, if you're new to the group, you get the option of that free coaching call anyway. So if you're really feeling stuck and things are not coming together for you just yet, feel free to book in that call with me. Just reach out to me personally and just say, hey, I'd love to take up that free coaching. I jumped on a call with a lady the other day who was stuck, and we worked through what the issues were for her. And yeah, she had some light bulb moments, and she messaged me just the other day to say, a week later after our call, and she said, I'm a kilo down. Oh my God. So it's like, yeah. So, you don't have to join my coaching program. Like I say, it's pretty full at the moment, but, we will definitely help with looking at what it is that needs to shift with what it is you're doing, and help you take steps forward so that you can start to achieve your goals. Alrighty, thanks for now, team. I will hopefully be able to go live again soon. Fingers crossed. Otherwise, what I'll do is I'll probably invite you to this Zoom call, and we'll just do it live. For those of you who can be there live, come into the Zoom room with me. I'll present it to you, and then I'll record it, and I'll pop the replay into the Facebook group for everybody else to watch later. But yeah, sorry about not being able to go live today. Technology. Hopefully Facebook will get back to me as to what's going on. All right, cheers.